The CEO expected contracts and numbers that morning, not a 6-year-old boy with a mop and a mission. "My mom's too tired," he said, "so I came to clean her office." He was the son of a cleaning lady, but his words shook the silence of a billion-dollar tower. What began as one child's quiet act of love would upend power, melt the coldest heart in the building, and unlock a story no one saw coming. The security guard was halfway through his coffee when the elevator to the top floor opened with a soft ding. It was not the usual hour for visitors, let alone children. The little boy stepped out, wearing oversized sneakers and a backpack that was clearly too heavy for him. In one hand, he clutched a rag. In the other, a plastic spray bottle. His hair was messy in a way only kids could pull off. But his eyes, wide, honest, determined, were impossible to ignore as he walked straight past the reception desk and toward the large double doors that led to the office of the most powerful man in the building. The receptionist stood up, confused. "Wait, where are your parents?" she asked. The boy paused, looked back, and said, "My mom's too tired, so I'll clean today." Before anyone could stop him, he gently pushed open the CEO's door and stepped inside. Inside, the room was sleek and cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked over the skyline. Minimalist decor, sharp lines, and silence, until the boy's sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. Behind the massive desk, a man in a tailored suit looked up from his screen. His expression did not change right away, but his eyes narrowed slightly. The boy walked to the middle of the room, set down his backpack, and pulled out a pair of bright yellow gloves. "I know this office," he said casually. "It is the one with the quietest floor. My mom says only important people get offices like this." The CEO stood slowly, adjusting his cufflinks. "And who exactly are you?" "I am Nathan," the boy replied, smiling. "And I am filling in for my mom today. She had a fever last night, and I told her I could handle it. I already did the 12th floor." The man blinked. "You did the 12th floor?" Nathan nodded, completely serious. "Except for Mr. Lenny's office. He has a cat. I am allergic." There was a silence that stretched too long. The man looked at the boy's tiny hands holding the oversized gloves. Then, almost involuntarily, he said, "Why would you come here? You are a child." Nathan tilted his head thoughtfully. "Because when people are tired, you help them. That is what you do for family." The CEO did not know what to say. No one had walked into his office like that before. No one had ever dared. But somehow, this 6-year-old had done it like he belonged. And strangely, for the first time in a long time, the man did not feel like sending someone away. He simply said, "What is your mother's name?" Nathan smiled. "Maya. Maya Lopez. She says her mop is braver than most people." The CEO turned toward the window, then back to the boy, whose face beamed with quiet pride. And just like that, everything changed. 3 weeks earlier, the alarm buzzed at 4 o'clock in the morning in a tiny third-floor apartment that always smelled faintly of lemon detergent and leftover hope. Maya Lopez stirred under the thin blanket, her back aching from the night shift, her arms sore from scrubbing floors that never seemed to stay clean. She blinked once, twice, and sat up before the sound could wake her son. Across the room, Nathan was bundled under a blanket covered in little astronauts and moons. He had drawn stars on it with a permanent marker last summer and insisted it kept his dreams from floating away. Maya smiled at the sight of him. Her reason. Her entire world. She tiptoed toward the kitchen, a space no bigger than a closet, and poured herself the last of the coffee she had saved from yesterday. Cold, bitter, and still better than nothing. As she sipped, she looked at the clock on the wall. 4 hours of sleep. Again. But that was still better than 5 o'clock. She was in her janitor uniform. Her name tag, bent, peeling, read Maya L. She slipped on her gloves, double-knotted her old sneakers, and tucked a note. Under Nathan's cereal bowl, "Good morning, astronaut. There is peanut butter on the toast and fruit in the fridge. Be kind today. Love, Mom." She never left without a note. By 5:30, she was on the city bus, her head resting against the window as the city came alive around her. She listened to other passengers talk about meetings, marketing pitches, client calls. Maya did not envy their careers, but she sometimes envied their clean clothes and rested faces. Her job was simple: clean what no one wanted to see. Empty trash, cans no one thought about. Wipe away footprints no one remembered leaving. And she did it with a quiet kind of grace that coworkers adored her. She remembered birthdays, brought extra snacks, and once helped patch up a colleague's broken shoe with duct tape and determination. But what made her truly different was her humor. "Why do I mop from left to right?" she joked once. "Because it is how I clean up the mess I made choosing my last boyfriend." Or, "I do not believe in ghosts, but if you hear someone humming badly at 2 in the morning on the 15th floor, that is just me." Maya was the kind of woman who could make pain look poetic and exhaustion feel like an art form. People liked her, even if they did not always remember to say it. But when her shift ended, the mask came off. She would ride 2 buses back home, pick Nathan up from the neighbor who watched him, and collapse onto the couch with him curled beside her like a kitten. They would watch cartoons, share microwave popcorn, and laugh at jokes only the two of them understood. Sometimes, Nathan would place his tiny hand over hers and say, "You are the strongest mom in the galaxy." And Maya would whisper back, "That is only because you are my son." They had no father in the picture. Maya never talked about it. And Nathan, wise beyond his years, never asked. All he knew was that his mom worked while the world slept, laughed even when her eyes looked tired, and somehow made their small life feel like an adventure. She always protected him from the harshness of the world. When rent was late, she turned it into a treasure hunt for spare change. When the power flickered, she called it candlelight camping. And when Nathan caught her coughing at night, she would say it was just her heart hiccuping from how much she loved him. Still, her body was starting to break down. The long nights, the weight of responsibility, the unpaid bills, they were slowly catching up. She had taken on extra shifts at the building downtown, at a high-rise office tower filled with people in suits who never looked twice at the janitor who mopped behind them. It paid slightly better. And it had elevators, which her knees appreciated. That was where she first heard the name. Cole Ashford, the CEO. The man on the top floor. A name people whispered with awe and fear. No one dared enter his office without explicit permission. He was known to fire people for leaving his blinds even slightly uneven. Maya had laughed when she first heard that. "Blinds, huh?" she had joked. "Well, tell him I clean better in the dark anyway." She did not expect to meet him. She certainly did not expect her son to end up in his office. But fate, like dust, has a way of settling where it is least expected. It was nearly midnight. The upper floors of Ashford Tower were already dark. Only the emergency lights cast a soft glow across the marble hallways, and the hum of the air conditioning filled the silence. Maya had worked her way up from the 10th floor, earbuds in, playlist shuffling through 90s ballads and cheesy pop. The building was quieter than usual tonight. Peaceful. She glanced at the checklist on her phone. Just one more office left, the one on the top floor, the one with the nameplate she usually skipped. Cole Ashford. Executive thing. Most janitors avoided that room like it was cursed. It was said he had yelled at someone once for breathing too loud while dusting his bookshelf. Another had been reprimanded for touching his water glass. But Maya's shift supervisor had texted her just 20 minutes earlier. "He's gone for the night. Do it fast and careful." She sighed, slipped her phone back into her pocket, and wheeled her cart down the silent hallway. The office door was heavy, oak, and slightly ajar. She tapped gently, more out of habit than necessity. No answer. She pushed. It opened with her shoulder. Inside, the room was exactly how she had imagined it. Precise, spotless, and so polished she could see her reflection in the marble floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass, bookshelves organized by color, an espresso machine that probably cost more than her month's rent. "Okay, Mr. Fancy. Let's make you sparkle," she whispered. She slipped on her gloves, bent down, and began working her way from the far wall inward, careful not to scuff anything. She even whistled softly while dusting the baseboards. Then she heard the sound. A door clicked. A soft, deliberate one. She froze. A moment later, she felt the presence before she saw it. The sound of shoes on tile, the shift in air, the slight crackle of tailored fabric. "I did not request any service this evening." The voice was deep, precise, unapologetic. Maya turned her head slowly, rising from her crouch. She was still holding a spray bottle and a half-used rag. The CEO himself stood in the doorway, adjusting the cuffs of his white shirt, his expression unreadable. "Good evening," she said calmly, her voice perfectly polite. "I thought you were done for the night." "I am," he replied. This is my office. Well, in that case, she said, standing fully. You and your office have excellent posture. He blinked. She gave a small grin, not moving. I mean, everything here is so straight and lined up. It is like being inside a geometry textbook. His brow furrowed. Are you mocking the arrangement of my furniture? Not mocking. Admiring. She gestured to the symmetrical bookshelf. I have never seen War and Peace lined up so precisely with Forbes magazine. That takes talent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his lips twitched. Barely, but she noticed he walked around the desk slowly, watching her. And your name is? Maya Lopez. I work the late shift. I was told this room needed attention. I did not approve that. Well then, I suppose I broke the rules. She held up the bottle. Want me to leave mid-spray, or should I at least finish the back wall? Another pause. His eyes studied her like a riddle he could not quite solve. You are unusually comfortable in situations that should be uncomfortable. She tilted her head. You mean when caught red-handed trespassing in the lair of the corporate overlord? His eyes narrowed slightly, but that almost smile returned. Most people apologize. I would, she said, if I had done anything wrong. The silence was thick, but not tense. In fact, it felt almost alive. He turned slightly, picking up a paperweight from his desk and placing it exactly 1 inch to the left. Finish the wall, he said finally. She gave a small nod. Yes, sir. As she bent down to continue cleaning, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear. You know, you could have just said please. It works wonders with kids and janitors. He did not reply, but after she left that night, he stood at the window for a long time, still holding the paperweight. For some reason, the office felt warmer. Cole Ashford always started his mornings at exactly 6:30. Black coffee, financial news on mute, 3 unread emails. By 7 o'clock, he was usually alone in his office, surrounded by silence and spreadsheets. But this morning, the silence was broken by the sound of tiny sneakers squeaking across polished marble. He looked up and blinked at a child, no more than 6 or 7, was in his office. A small backpack slung over one shoulder, a rolled-up rag in his left hand, and a determined expression that seemed far too mature for someone whose shoes lit up when he walked. Cole stood slowly from behind his desk. How did you get in here? The boy did not flinch. Instead, he walked straight to the edge of the rug and stopped. I used my mom's badge, he said, then held it up proudly. It still works. Cole frowned. Your mother works here? She did. She cleans. Her name's Maya Lopez. But she is sick today. She said she could not miss work. So I came. There was no hesitation in his voice. No fear. Just plain certainty. Cole walked around the desk, folding his arms. You came to clean my office. The boy nodded. Yes, sir. Alone? Well, the boy said, tilting his head. Mr. Frank from security helped me press the elevator button because I am not tall enough. Cole stared at him, trying to decide if he was being pranked. Why would you do this? He asked, voice low. The boy looked him in the eye. Because my mom works hard. She never complains. And this job helps us eat and pay rent. And she said she had never missed a single shift. So I told her, you sleep. I'll go. Cole opened his mouth, then closed it again. No one had ever walked into his office like this. Certainly not a child. Certainly not with a rag. What is your name? He asked finally. Nathan, the boy replied. And how old are you? 6 3/4, Nathan said proudly. I know it is not legal to work yet, but I am just helping. I do chores at home too. I know how to clean. Cole stared at the boy's face. Earnest, innocent, but with something fierce behind his eyes. A loyalty that seemed carved into his bones. And what does your mother think about this? She did not want me to come, Nathan said softly. But I think deep down, she was glad. He opened his backpack and pulled out a napkin-wrapped sandwich. I also brought lunch. Peanut butter and banana. 1/2. Cole's brows rose. You are offering me a sandwich? Nathan shrugged. You look like someone who skips breakfast. For the first time in a long while, Cole let out the faintest chuckle. No, thank you. Nathan smiled, then looked around. Can I start in that corner? Before Cole could say no, Nathan was already walking over, pulling on a pair of miniature gloves from his backpack. He sprayed the lower half of a glass cabinet and began wiping carefully, just like he had seen his mom do. Cole stood frozen. This office had hosted board members, politicians, billionaires. But never a child on a mission to protect his mother's dignity. And somehow, it had never felt more human. He did not stop the boy. He simply returned to his desk and sat in silence, watching his tiny hands moved with care. There were questions to ask, HR policies, safety issues. But Cole found himself not caring. Not yet. Something about this child was disarming. He had come not out of rebellion, but responsibility. Not for himself, but for someone he loved. Cole opened his laptop, but barely looked at the screen. Nathan hummed softly as he wiped. A silly, off-key tune, and Cole Ashford, the man known for his obsession with silence, did not mind. Not one bit. Maya's fever had broken by the afternoon, but the headache remained like a dull drumbeat behind her eyes. She sat up on the couch slowly, realizing the apartment was unusually quiet. No cartoons, no clinking cereal bowl. Just silence. She glanced toward the kitchen and saw a note, written in marker on the back of a grocery receipt. Mom, rest. I want to work for you. Love, your co-pilot. Her heart stopped. Nathan, her son, 6 years old, had taken her badge and gone to her job. Panic surged. She grabbed her phone with shaky hands and dialed the number of her floor manager at Ashford Tower. Before the call could even ring, another call came in. Block number. She hesitated, then answered. Ms. Lopez, a clipped voice said. This is Margaret Kane from HR. We need to speak with you immediately. There has been a serious incident involving unauthorized access to executive offices. Maya blinked. My son, I think you are to report to the administrative floor at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Please be advised this may affect your employment status. The line went dead. Maya sat motionless for several seconds, the phone still against her ear. Nathan came home shortly after, proudly holding an empty lunchbox and a sponge. I did it, Mom, he said with shining eyes. Mr. Ashford even let me finish the whole window shelf. And he smiled. I think he liked it. Maya dropped to her knees, pulled him into a tight hug, and whispered into his ear, Sweetheart, you cannot ever do that again. But you were sick. I wanted to help. No, she said, holding back tears. I know, baby. The next morning, Maya walked into the building with her hair pulled back, clothes neatly pressed, Nathan's small hand wrapped around hers. The administrative floor, a panel of HR staff, legal representatives, and her direct supervisor waited. Behind a long table, Cole Ashford was not there. The meeting was cold, formal, unforgiving. Ms. Lopez, we reviewed security footage showing your child accessing restricted areas. I had no idea he would. You used your ID badge negligently. He was only trying to help. Your behavior violates multiple sections of employee conduct. I have never been late. Never taken a sick day. Please, unfortunately, given the breach in protocol, your position is terminated effective immediately. Silence. Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to fight, to scream. But Nathan sat beside her, holding her hand, eyes wide. She looked down at him, smiled gently, and nodded. Thank you for the opportunity, she said quietly. She gathered her bag, picked up her son, and walked out of the building. Without another word. Outside, under the morning sun, she leaned against a bench and let out a slow breath. Nathan looked up at her. Are you okay, Mom? She smiled, the kind of smile that mothers wear when everything hurts, but they do not want their child to feel it. I am okay, she said softly. Sometimes good people lose things they do not deserve to lose. But we never lose kindness. Remember that. Nathan leaned into her. I just wanted to help. And you did, she whispered. You reminded someone like him that we exist. They sat in silence for a while. Maya stared at the tall building across the street. Ashford Tower gleamed in the light. Tall, untouchable, cold. She thought of the CEO. His perfectly placed books. His watchful eyes. He had let her son clean his office. Had not called security. Had not yelled. Maybe he was not as cold as the walls around him. Or maybe he was just curious. She would not know now, because her badge no longer beeped, and the world kept turning. Cole Ashford sat in his corner office, staring at an untouched cup of espresso. The meeting notes in front of him blurred. The numbers made sense. The contracts were fine, but something kept tugging at the edge of his mind. Nathan, and the mother, who did not show up the next night. He had expected to see her again. maybe with another quick-witted remark or a silent nod. But she never returned. Human Resources said the matter was handled. Handled. The word irritated him more than it should have. He pulled up her file. Maya Lopez. Employed for 15 months. No infractions. No tardiness. No complaints. Notes from supervisors described her as uplifting, efficient, well-liked. The termination was procedural, but it did not feel right. Not after that. At 6 o'clock sharp, Cole left the tower, a rare deviation from his usual midnight exit. His driver raised an eyebrow when given the address. Sir, that neighborhood is not usually. I know, Cole said flatly. Just drive. 15 minutes later, they arrived in front of a small brick building, worn but tidy. The sidewalk, chalk drawings out front gave it a sense of life. Suns, flowers, crooked rocket ships. Cole stepped out, ignoring the stares of neighbors who clearly were not used to seeing a black car with tinted windows in front of their complex. He climbed the narrow staircase to the third floor and found the number .3 beat. He knocked. A few seconds passed before the door cracked open, guarded by a chained a familiar voice. Unless you are selling cookies, I am not buying anything. Cole cleared his throat. Maya, it is Cole Ashford. Silence. Then the chain slid, and the door opened fully. She stood there, hair up in a messy bun, sweatshirt a size too big, and socks that did not match. And yet somehow, she still looked entirely in control. Well, she said, I was not expecting the CEO of the universe at my door. He glanced past her shoulder. I came to speak with you. Let me guess. HR sent you to explain why. I am a learning experience? No, he said quietly. I sent myself. She raised an eyebrow. Should I alert the media? Before he could answer, a familiar voice echoed from inside. Mom, it is the muffin boss. Nathan ran into view, socks sliding on the floor, grinning up at Cole like an old friend. Cole blinked. Muffin boss. Maya shrugged. He thinks you look like the kind of person who eats fancy muffins and gives orders. Nathan grabbed Cole's hand without hesitation. Want to see my robot drawing? Manners, sweetheart, Maya said quickly. Cole, a man who usually disliked being touched by anyone, let the boy tug him inside. The apartment was small but spotless. Dishes drying neatly on a rack. Books stacked on a folding table. A laundry basket tucked into the corner. Lived in, but warm. Cole sat awkwardly on the edge of the couch as Nathan brought over a notebook filled with crayon-drawn robots and spaceships. You are the first adult who has ever let me clean a CEO's office, Nathan said proudly. Cole looked at Maya. She was leaning in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching. You should not have been fired, he said finally. Her expression shifted, just slightly, from sarcasm to something softer. Too late now, she said. I can fix it. Can you? She asked. Even if you put my name back in the system, the way I left still happened. The people who judge me are still there. The policies are still cold. He nodded once. That is why I am not here to reinstate you. She tilted her head. I am offering you something else, he said. A temporary assistant position. With me. Directly. She laughed. Loudly. I mop better than I type. You listen better. Than most executives, he replied. She studied him. And what exactly would I be assisting you with, Mr. Muffin Boss? He almost smiled. Keeping me honest. She raised both brows. That is a full-time job. Then I will double the pay. Maya looked at her son. Then at Cole. Do I get to make sarcastic remarks and correct your posture? He nodded. I expect nothing less. She thought for a moment longer. Then said, fine. But I am keeping my mop. For emergencies. Cole extended his hand. She shook it, firmly. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just a job offer, not just a favor, but the start of something neither of them had words for yet. But Nathan, sitting cross-legged on the floor, grinned. He already knew. Cole Ashford did not make impulsive decisions. But hiring Maya Lopez felt less like an impulse and more like a correction the universe had been waiting for him to make. At first, the partnership was a novelty. A billionaire CEO and a former janitor, navigating executive meetings together. But novelty quickly gave way to function. Then to admiration. By the end of her first week, Maya had restructured his scheduling system, spotted 3 critical errors in a contract he had overlooked, and unintentionally talked a venture capitalist out of a lawsuit, with nothing but honesty and banana bread. I do not understand how you just disarmed a man who drives a gold-plated Range Rover, Cole said, watching the investor leave smiling. I told him the truth, she replied, sipping her coffee. That he is the kind of guy who bullies people because he is scared of losing control. That sounds more like a threat. No, she said with a smirk. It was empathy, delivered with a cinnamon roll. Maya had an ease about her. She did not flinch in high-stakes meetings. She did not overthink boardroom politics. She spoke plainly, listened closely, and rolled her eyes at corporate jargon. Cole, who had been surrounded by consultants and advisors his entire life, found himself leaning on her more than he ever intended. She reminded him of things he had forgotten, that being powerful did not mean being cold, that speaking last did not mean speaking best, that humor, when timed well, could dismantle egos faster than spreadsheets. Still, not everyone approved at a TA quarterly strategy session. A board member whispered, "Is that your cleaning lady?" "She is my advisor," Cole replied without hesitation. "She happens to be better at strategy than half this room." Later, Maya nudged him. "You know I used to actually clean your office, right? Now I just clean up your messes." He grinned. "And do a better job." But underneath the banter, something else was blooming, something unspoken. When Maya laughed, Cole looked longer than necessary. When Cole worked late, Maya always stayed. Sometimes they sat in silence, watching the city lights from his office. She would bring leftovers. He would pretend not to like them, and then finish every bite. "You are lucky I cook like I clean," she teased. "And yet, you still make the same jokes. They are free. You are getting a bargain." He never said it aloud, but he started looking forward to her voice, to her presence, to her unapologetic warmth in a world that had trained him to be guarded. She noticed things too, the way his shoulders eased when she walked into the room, the rare, real smile he gave when Nathan dropped by after school to draw aliens on the whiteboard, the way he never looked at his phone when she was speaking. It was not dramatic. It was not sudden. It was slow, careful, earned. One evening, after a grueling pitch meeting, they sat alone in the conference room. Cole loosened his tie. Maya took off her heels. "I used to think people like you were born with steel in your bones," she said. "And I was wrong." He looked at her. "What are they made of?" She smiled softly. "Paper, just folded really tight." He laughed. "A real one." And then, for a moment, the air changed as he reached for her hand. She did not pull away, but she did say, "Careful. I bite." He leaned in slightly. "So do I." They did not kiss. Not yet, but they did not need to. The silence said enough. The partnership was no longer about logistics or status. It was about trust, and trust, in their world, was rarer than gold. Weeks passed. The company launched a bold new campaign, one Maya had helped shape from scratch. The press event, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Investors smiled. Cole took the stage, thanked his team, and then paused. "I would like to acknowledge someone whose insight, honesty, and refusal to tolerate my terrible coffee have changed not only my work, but my life." He turned to her and offered his hand. Maya froze for half a second, then took it and stepped into the spotlight. 6 months later, the new office was smaller than Cole's corner suite, but it had a better view. At least to Maya, it overlooked the courtyard where Nathan sometimes drew rocket ships with sidewalk chalk after school, just beneath her window. Inside, the walls were softer. There were potted plants, a coffee maker that actually worked, and a small framed photo of Nathan holding a mop proudly labeled Employee of the Month, unofficial. Cole entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one on her desk and took the seat across from her. "You do realize," he said, "you are now the only person in this company I let interrupt me." She leaned back, arms folded. "That is because I am the only person who tells you when you are being ridiculous." He smiled. "I do not deny it." They sat in comfortable silence until the door creaked open. Nathan peeked in, his backpack twice the size of him. "Mom?" he asked. "Can I help clean again today?" She smiled, standing up. "Of course, honey. But no more sneaking into CEO. Office is okay." He nodded seriously, then looked at Cole. "Unless it is his office." Cole laughed. "That one is always yours." Maya reached out and took Cole's hand. He held it easily now, like it had always belonged there. Sometimes, the smallest people carry the biggest lessons. And sometimes, love starts with a mop, a muffin, and the courage to speak that if this story touched you. We would love to know. Where in the world are you watching from? Leave us a comment below. We read every single one, and nothing makes us happier. And if you want more soul-stirring stories, emotional stories, and heartwarming stories that prove love can bloom in the unlikeliest places, subscribe now. Your next favorite story is just one click away.